So my name is Abby. I'm the maker specialist at Evelyn Metter Branch Library in Seabrook, Texas. We are part of the Harris County Public Library System. This is the 3D design class, and we'll be working with TinkerCad today. So the first thing we're going to do is actually we're going to pop over to Thingiverse, and these are in the chat box if you want to download them there, or you can download it here. From here, it will download a .zip file. So you'll click Show in Folder, right-click on it. I don't know if it's showing you my Windows thing, but go ahead, right-click on it, click Extract All, and then it will open up the files for you, so that you'll be able to use them in TinkerCad. So start by going to Create New Design. And TinkerCad does give cute, fun little names up here, but those are not much more helpful than New Document 1 when you're looking to retrieve your things. So I'm going to go ahead and call it Articulated Slug. And TinkerCad does auto-save, and you'll see a little message pops up down here when it's saving, or you can always press Control-S to force it to save. First, we're going to import those pieces we just downloaded. So I'm going to choose a file, go to my Downloads folder, in the Unzipped folder, Files, and just pick the first one, Articulated Hinge. It does only let you import one at a time. So I'm going to repeat that. Import, choose file, Articulated Hinge Slicer, and import. And one more time, import, choose a file, Articulated Punch, open and import. And then you can just click and drag to move each of these pieces out of the way. We don't need them quite yet. I am going to select these two, and you can either select by clicking and dragging a box over them, or you can click each one and hold down Shift. And it'll say up here, Shapes 2. And we're going to make those into holes instead of solid. From here, if you want to be able to access this again quickly, if you go over to where it says Basic Shapes, all the way very down under U and Part Collection, that allows you to create part, so then you don't have to import them again. And you give it a name up here. You can give it a description. You tell it if it's solid or if it's a hole. I would not lock the part size, but you can. It will not let you scale it if you lock it. And then just save it. And then it will pop up over here always when you want to use it again. Because you can use this same method to create articulated anything. That is what the Thingiverse file shows. You can go down and see the remixes down here. You can see some of the things that people have used this to create. There are a lot of options. Okay, so back over here, we are going to start with a slug because it is simple and surprisingly fun to play with. There's a video of it being printed, actually, if you hop over to our Facebook page. We're going to start with the round roof, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So you can rotate, there are 3 little rotate, and sometimes you have to right-click and drag the work plane to see all 3 of them. And you can click and drag, and if you hold your mouse out, it lets you drag one degree at a time, but if you watch, if I move my cursor closer, it clicks it to these lines, so I can make sure it's exactly at 90 degrees. Or you can click and type in the boxes. So we're going to start that way, and now I'm going to change the size of it. I'm going to make this 15, this will be 80, and you can just type in those boxes and tab to the next one. And this I'm going to make shorter by 9. You can also click and drag any of these little boxes, but it is definitely more precise to do the typing method. So that's going to be our snail's body. Oh, you can't import the articulated. Did you unzip the file? Make sure to right click and do extract all. And it should let you do that. If there's a little zipper icon on the folder. Okay, so if you click with your right hand mouse button, a menu should pop up on the folder, and then you can scroll down, and one of the options should be bolded actually, is extract all. And once you click on that, it'll pop up with a thing, and just click OK, and that'll put it in the same folder you're in now. Let me see if I can share that screen real quick. All right, so now it's showing my downloads. So it's got this little zipper on it. Right click, oh, it's not bold. It's right here, extract all, and extract. It's telling me I already have that in that folder, and from there, if you use that one, you can look at the files. So now you see it's down here with no zipper. Did that work? Okay, great. All right, so let me click on my round roof again. That was 15 by 80 by 9. And then next we'll take a half sphere. And again, we're going to make that 15 that way and 9 this way. The hinge piece is 9 millimeters tall. And actually all of these numbers, 3D printing goes in millimeters, so all of these are millimeters. You can convert it to inches, but then my numbers will be off from yours. And the hinge is 9 millimeters tall, so that's how tall I'm making the slug's body here. Once I've got my half sphere here appropriately sized, I'm just going to fit it back about halfway, and you can either click and drag or use the arrow keys. If you use the arrow keys, it moves it exactly 1 millimeter in whichever direction you click. So that's handy to have set. Next, we're going to work on dividing. We're going to change this. Oh, let's see. The half sphere should be 15 millimeters long by 20 and then 9 tall. So that is right here. So we've got 15 to match the 15 width of the half or the round roof here, and then 20 wide. So you only see about 10 millimeters of it sticking out when you put those two together. And don't spend a lot of time lining the two pieces up. We'll do that with, there's a command to do that, and we'll do that at the end. So now for our paraboloid right here. We're going to slice this in half, and it's going to make a great tail that's not too pointy. So again, we're going to make it 15 here, and 18 here. So 15 by 18, and then we're going to leave this at 20 tall. And I'm going to switch this again. You can just type it if you want it to be 90. Oh, I want it to go the other direction. So I'm going to type -90. And then if you press the D key, that drops it down to the work plane so that it's just touching. So if anything you select and press D, it'll drop it. If it's lifted up a little bit, and it'll drop it perfectly flat. So now if we scroll up, we'll grab a box and we're going to put it over our paraboloid. We're going to make it 9 millimeters tall, so it's exactly half. And then here's where we'll start with aligning. You can just select both of those, shift click. We'll have two shapes here. And then align tool is this little icon right up at the top. And it pulls up these little boxes. So we know it's already aligned. We want it aligned at the bottom. So where they're gray, they're perfectly aligned already. We want to go middle this way and middle this way. And then you click group. And now we have a little half paraboloid. It is way up above the work plane. So again, hit the letter D on the keyboard and it drops down perfectly to the bottom. So this I'm going to drag over here. If you want to make sure that it's perfectly aligned, you zoom in with your scroll wheel on your mouse, or there's buttons over here, and press the W key or this work plane icon right here. Put it flat against the side of the round roof. Make sure it's not angled at all, and make sure it's on the round roof, flat there. And now I have a new work plane that's perfectly aligned with the body of the slug, and if I click my tail, I can press D and it drops. And press W or click the work plane button again and just click over off of your object somewhere and it'll put it back to normal. So once I have those three shapes together, I'm going to click and drag to select all of them, and again this align button. We're going to center them this way though. And then I'm going to choose my half paraboloid here, and I'm going to press duplicate. Or you can also use Control C and Control V on your keyboard, just like in any other program that lets you copy and paste. I'm going to rotate it this way, but just a little bit of an angle here. And these are going to be the antenna. So I'm going to shrink those down to 3 millimeters that way. 3 millimeters this way. And then put it up on just wherever it looks good. If you don't like the rotation angle, you can rotate it a little more. Part you get to take a little artistic licensing with these, and then we'll hit duplicate again, and this time I'm going to use the mirror button. So right next to the align button, click that. It shows these arrows. If I click this way, it'll flip it that way, and if I click it this way, it flips it this way. And then I just drag it over, and I'm going to select them both, align. Not here, and it does give you kind of a little preview of what the align will look like. So I'm just going to square those up to each other and group them. And if you want, you can add a tiny half sphere. If you press Shift while you drag, it scales it in all the directions. Okay, for the antenna, I made a copy of this, so Control C and Control V to paste it, or you can press the duplicate button up here. 3 millimeters, 3 millimeters, and then rotate however. And then I just duplicated the small one and press this mirror button over here. It also shows when you hover it, it shows the M, so you can press the M key to bring up those options. If I hover over each of these arrows, it shows me a preview of what I'm going to do with the little orange. And I want to press this one so I get an identical antenna on this side. And then I'm just going to arrange them how I like them, spread them. Just kind of estimate here of what looks good. I think I made it. So I'm going to duplicate this one again and mirror it because I think I changed them. There we go. Then I'll select them both, line them up so that they are the same length. And then if I group them, they might be a little off-centered of the head here, but once I select everything and align, as long as these two are grouped as one item, otherwise I'm going to turn my slug into a unicorn slug, but that's also okay. I'm going to click this middle button and everything should line up there. So, and these do kind of, they show you that orange ghosting of what it'll look like if you click each of the align buttons. So you can kind of get a preview of what would happen. So once those are all aligned, I'm going to group them. And they should all turn one color, or if this box is checked, they will stay multicolor. Our printer only prints one color though, so I like to make sure that I'm designing one color too. Here you can choose any color. It doesn't really matter. Like blue, because what the 3D printed items, you can choose any color in your design program, but what matters is what color filament you put in the printer. It's kind of like paper. Whatever color paper you put in the printer is the color your paper will be, unless you tell it, of course, to print ink on that part of the paper. So now I'm going to grab this is called the slicer, and this is how we're going to make it articulated. And this process will work to articulate anything. So you can use pretty much any flat item. You can use this to put little hinges and it will print all in one piece and the hinges will flex. It's a very neat trick and people are always very impressed by it. So I'm going to start by putting my little slicer. I'm going to put it right here, but then I'm going to move it down about 4 clicks that way so that I have room for the hinge. And then I'm going to press duplicate. And then this is a neat trick. If you hold down Shift and the right arrow key, it moves it exactly 10 millimeters. And then if you leave this selected, don't click anything else, just press duplicate again, it will move it, it will automatically copy it and move it 10 millimeters to the right. So you can just press that duplicate button until you get to the end of your shape. Except if it's on this narrower part, the hinge will be taller than the slug itself. So I'm just going to focus on the body of the slug and not with the tail or the head. So once those are all there, you don't have to line these up as long as they're completely bisecting your slug. You select everything and group. And now you have one little slug. I'm actually changed the color. I just realized it's the same blue as the background. Go with yellow. Yellow is fun. Oh, oops. And so if you move it around, you'll see they're still connected, but there is a gap between each segment. So now we're going to take the hinge and the hinge punch and line the two of them up. For this part, you may want to change your snap grid here to smaller. You can change this number. And 0.1 is as small as it goes. And then we're going to zoom in and rotate. So what I want to see is the hinge punch centered on the side of the hinge. So you want it to cover these front two edges, and there's a little bit that's back here, and kind of be centered on it. So when you look, oops. So when you look straight down, you want that hole to be about even there. Once you have those even, you want to select them both. So make sure you've got your shapes 2 is right here. And drag them over to your first segment. You're going to zoom. You'll definitely need to be using your zoom and angling techniques on this. And you want to make sure that the hole completely covers right here, because otherwise it will be solid and it will not, it won't print correctly. It'll be fused together. So as long as the hole, and you may want to click away and make sure, and then click just on the hole punch part and make sure that that's going forward far enough. So then select everything and align again to make sure, nope, I don't think that lined up properly yet. To make sure your thing is in the center, and then just like before, we're going to select both the hinge and the hinge punch this time. It can be kind of hard to grab them both when they're like this. You have to zoom sometimes and click just on that area. And then just like before, we're going to duplicate and do, oh, before you do this part, make sure to change the snap grid back to 1. And then do the shift and arrow key. And that'll line it up, hopefully, perfectly in each segment with the slices that we already did. And so just like before, you hit the duplicate button and it does all of the hard work for us. So now we're going to select our slug and holding shift and click the top parts here. So we don't want to select any of our hinges yet. We just want our hole puncher, our hinge puncher shape, and group those together with the slug. It might take a second, but then you'll see the links now. And if you select the links while you do that, they're going to punch a hole through the links too, and you will have no links. So make sure to only have those slugs selected, or the punches selected. And then select everything. So it should be the same number as before, and group those. And it'll all turn one color, hopefully. And that is how you know it's all one piece. And it'll all stay together. And those hinges will print. They have a teeny tiny, let's see if I can pull one up. Our printer can do a bridge of, so if you look at it here, it's transparent. Our printer can do a bridge of 25 millimeters, and this is only 5.5 wide. So it creates a tiny little bridge in here that shows us, and then it prints a pin that goes through that. And it prints all in one piece. It's very cool. And when we pick it up, it's flexible. So I'm going to delete that. Okay, the hinge and the punch. I can show you that again. So I'm going to hit undo here. Which part on the hinge and the punch? Lining them up or just the whole thing again? Okay. So once I've got, let's see, bring them, oops, I have 2 of them. So I'm going to move the slug a little out of the way and close that. So I'm going to take the punch and line it up on top of the hinge. And I'm going to zoom so I can really see where it's darker gray, because I want to completely cover that. So, and when I use my arrow keys, it's moving it too far. So I'm going to change my snap grid here to 1 millimeter so I can move it just a teeny bit at a time. So you want it kind of centered that way. and it needs to cover this part here. If it leaves this here, it will fuse and it won't be flexy. So we want to make sure to cover that there. And once I have that lined up how I want it, I select both of them and drag them over to the slug. And actually, I'm going to drag them all. TinkerCad kind of focuses around the middle every time you zoom in, so it's easier to move something to the middle sometime to see the angle you need. So I'm going to click on click right here to get the hinge, shift click up here to get the punch, and then line them up with the front of the segment. So I need to be able to see that grayness coming through on the top of the segment. And then if I select everything and align it to the center, I won't see the edges of the hinge sticking out of the head. So from there, I can see just the littlest bit of gray. And I'm going to select just the punch and the hinge, duplicate, and then I have to change my snap grid here because otherwise it's going to move 1 millimeter instead of 10 millimeters. Change it to 1, and now because the shift click or shift and arrow moves it by 10 whatever snap you have measure. So if you do it by 5, it would move it 50. If you do a quarter, it would do 2.5. So then I'm going to select duplicate again, just like with the slicer, and it will go across. That help? Delete my extra ones there. And so if you use the shift and arrow key along with that duplicate and repeat button, that keeps it all. So our last one should be just as neatly lined up as the first one, instead of having to manually align each one with the segments. From there, I'm going to click on each hinge while holding down shift. I mean, not hinge, but the punch, while holding down shift, and then click on my main slug and group those while making sure not to group in the hinges. And then I'm going to go and group everything left. Make it yellow again. So from there, once I'm done, you can click export, STL. It does have to be STL. And from there, you should be able to attach that file to an email. So thank you for coming.